There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. All right, welcome once again. We are back with Big in the Community. This is episode very far away from number 1, but I don't know the exact number, but we're going to get right into it. We'll start with a quote. So this is, some would say, the GOAT, Michael Jordan. To be successful, you have to be selfish, or else you never achieve. And once you get to your highest level, then you have to be unselfish. Stay reachable, stay in touch, and don't isolate. So, with that, we have our guest today, Brian Persky. Welcome from Discover Kalamazoo. Almost said the wrong thing, but I did not. This is one take this day, not like last time, but we don't need to talk about that. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what's your title at Discover Kalamazoo?
Yeah, so I am the Director of Business Development at Discover Kalamazoo.
Nice. And then how long have you been there?
Just had my 8-year anniversary. So the first 6.5 years of that, I was the Sports Event Development Manager. And just within the last year and a half or two, now I'm overseeing our meetings and our sports teams.
Nice. And then how long have you been in Kalamazoo?
I was just chatting earlier about this. I can't believe it's been 20 years now. So wow. I'm originally from the Grand Rapids area, and I went to Western, and I've been here ever since. So
okay.
20 years. Crazy to say.
Where at around Grand Rapids?
So I grew up in Comstock Park for the first 9 years of my life, and then my family, I come from a family of teachers, and they got jobs at Granville, so I moved to Granville. And then to college at Western was in 2003. I've been here ever since then. So
okay, nice. So congratulations on all those,
yeah.
Years and years of being in the roles that you've been in. I know you do great work because I've seen it.
We've worked together on stuff.
Yeah, that too. The spelling bee.
Yep.
That was fun.
Yep, coming up on year number 2 here in a few weeks.
Yeah, so. And I didn't realize Kalamazoo didn't have a spelling bee before.
I know. Well, it's funny. These things take years to work on, and it was one of my first years at Discover. We met with Scripps at a trade show, and they were like, they pulled up a map of Michigan, and they're like, actually, Kalamazoo doesn't have a spelling bee. And at the time, we were like, okay, like, how do we do that, though? And so it took us a few years to develop it, and then 6 years later, we finally had the first one. So. Right. But it's cool to have that here.
Yeah, so. It is. It's awesome to see things like that, that, you kind of just take for granted. You're like, oh, the spelling bee. Like, yeah. Of course. But then it's like, oh, we've never actually done that in Kalamazoo and had someone go to the national spelling bee.
It was so cool for anybody that caught it. There was the competition at Chenery, and a little girl named Clara from KPS won the bee and went to Washington, D.C., and then you could watch her on TV, and they put Kalamazoo, Michigan on there. I think it was really cool just to have that representation at the national level. So yeah,
humble brag, It
was super cool. Yeah, it was just cool for her and her family, and she represented us, amazingly. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it's nice to see opportunities like that not all kids get to have, and then to see that happen here was amazing. So. Yeah. Thank you for that. I had to add a little bit about that because I thought that was really cool.
It was a lot of people involved with that, and I would definitely be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Deb Droppers at the Kalamazoo Experiential Learning Center. You guys for being a partner that first year, and KPS was highly involved too. So it was a lot. It was a big effort with a lot of people. So
nice collaborative effort.
100%.
So to go with that, that's an example. But how do you collaborate with organizations in Kalamazoo?
It's different, not to be cliche, but it's different for every event. So like we work with sports events and we work with meeting and event planners. And so it looks different, for everyone. So, I mean, one recent example is that we are trying to get some NCAA events here to Kalamazoo, and every 3 or 4 years, the NCAA opens up bid cycles for 3 or 4 years at a time. And so our team went to Indianapolis in August with Western Michigan and with Kalamazoo College to look at what all the bid opportunities were. And there's over 90 of them, different sports. men's and women's sports. And then we come back to Kalamazoo and we brainstorm with Kalamazoo College and Western, and we say, all right, what are the best facilities that we have here to host an NCAA event? And right now, Kalamazoo College and Western are both working on bids for I want to say it's the 2027 to 2030 events. We're looking at those years right now on what we're going to bid, and those bids are due in about a week or two.
Wow.
And so that's how far out we're working in some cases. So we're working with, a variety of partners on that, and then we submit our bid, and you wait 9 months to find out if you win it or not. So
wow.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I didn't realize that it took, you're already planning for years ahead of time.
Yeah.
Than right now.
Yep.
Wow. And then you have to wait 9 months.
Yeah. So the whole process from start to finish is almost 2 years for an NCAA bid cycle, which is crazy because we have those initial meetings in the last spring, and then into the summer. You spend 3 or 4 months compiling a bid together. You submit it in February, which is like now. And then I think it's October when they make the final announcements on who's hosting all those years. So yeah, it's a crazy process.
Wow. I could have another kid before
right.
before you
could almost field a team by then.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so enough about your role in organization for now. But what's your story and who are you? And it's up to you how far back you want to go. You could go to birth. You could go to elementary. You could go to high school. Wherever you want to go. Whatever you want to share. Hobbies, interests. Wherever you want to go with this.
Yeah, so I guess to tie it to this, and sorry my voice is a little hoarse because I got over a cold a week ago. I'm not contagious, but so I would say what's interesting about my background is that both my parents grew up in Kalamazoo. My mom went to Portage. Actually, my dad went to Portage Northern. My mom went to Portage Central. So kind of rivals in the area, but they lived in Kalamazoo. My grandparents lived off Oakland Drive in Kalamazoo for many years. I was born in Grand Rapids because my parents moved there after school for teaching jobs, and they both became teachers. They're both retired teachers now. And so naturally as a kid, I thought I'm going to be a teacher because that's pretty much all I knew growing up.
Right.
And so I grew up in the Grand Rapids area for my whole life. Started in Comstock Park and then went to Granville, Michigan on the south side of Grand Rapids there. And then I ended up at Western Michigan going into teaching. So my go Broncos. So for the first 3 or 4 years, I went into teaching. I did student teaching at Parkwood Upjohn was my first pre-student teaching internship, and I did a second grade classroom with, I forget her name now. I was hoping I'd remember it, but I don't remember my teacher's name there. But I did second grade pre-student teaching there. And then my next pre-student teaching assignment was at Northeast Middle School in Comstock. And then I went into my student teaching at Caledonia, kind of closer to home, only about 15 minutes from Granville where I grew up. And that was year 5 at Western that I was like fully into like student teaching. I applied for over 100 teaching jobs and I could not get a teaching job. Like I was applying all over the country, because at that time, Michigan was a hotbed for teaching and it was hard to find a job. So I was looking everywhere from Alaska to Texas to North Carolina, and I have friends that have made those moves and they're still teachers. But at the same time I was doing my student teaching, I took an internship at Downtown Kalamazoo Incorporated. It's no longer an organization, but that was the name of the organization, and it was a downtown development organization for Kalamazoo at the time. And right about that same time that I was, applying for teaching jobs, my supervisor left at that time, which left an opening that I had been doing that internship for over a year. And I thought, like, why not me? I've kind of been doing that job. I fell in love with Kalamazoo because by this time it had been about 6 years that I've lived here. And so I thought maybe this was a fork in the road for me. And so I chose that fork, and I went into economic development, and I worked that job for probably 4 or 5 years until the city of Three Rivers created an opening for like their first full-time downtown development director. And so somebody told me about it. I threw my name in the hat and I got that job. So after about 5 or 6 years with DKI, I took that job in Three Rivers, and I was there for about a year and a half as the executive director. And I think that's where I learned probably the most about myself and what I wanted to do. It was a very challenging job, but I made a lot of great connections down there. I grew as an individual because I was on my own and I had to make my own decisions. Like I wasn't an intern anymore and I wasn't a coordinator anymore. I had to make the executive director level calls, which were really challenging. So
You said DKI.
DKI. It was Downtown Kalamazoo Incorporated.
Okay, sorry.
And more currently the Downtown Partnership, I think, is what it was more recently called. So yeah, after about a year and a half in Three Rivers, I got a call to come back here for a sports event development manager role at Discover Kalamazoo. And the president at the time was like, "This, you'd be a perfect fit for this." And at that time, I missed being a part of a team, and I missed Kalamazoo. I was still living here, but commuting to Three Rivers, and so I really missed being part of this community. And I wasn't looking to leave, but this was like the perfect job for me. I've loved sports my whole life. I've loved Kalamazoo. I've loved economic development. And so it was a perfect fit. And that was in 2015. And I've been here ever since when I made that move back to Discover Kalamazoo. It was great to be part of a team again and back at the community that I love. So I've been at Discover now for 8 years in a variety of roles. It's just kind of evolved over the years. So. Yeah.
Wow. So you were dead set on, I'm going to be a teacher.
Yeah. I thought for sure. I still have my teaching certificate, even though it's expired now, but yeah.
Wow. No, I've seen that where people are like, this is what I'm going to do. And somehow they kind of land in another position and almost makes you think, oh, well, maybe this is what you're supposed to do since, you said you were applying everywhere and just didn't find anything.
Sometimes just meant to be. And I loved my student teaching experience. I stay in contact with, so I taught sixth grade at the time. A lot of these sixth graders now are like adults with multiple kids and stuff. So it is kind of crazy to think, like I still stay in touch with some of them because that was like my first class, that I ever had. And, but I didn't have the same passion for it that I had for like Kalamazoo and developing the community in a variety of ways. That I just really fell in love with that with my internship. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Like you said, you kind of fell in love with Kalamazoo.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So what motivated you to get where you are now?
Yeah, it sounds cliche, but I really got that when I was an intern at Downtown Kalamazoo, and even when I was full time as a planning and development coordinator. I really got to know the people in this community. I got to know the business owners. I got to know some of the movers and shakers in town, and just everyday people in Kalamazoo. And I think 6 years of that, it just makes you fall in love with it, and it makes you feel like it's your home. So for me, like even today, I'm just highly motivated to do the best that I can for the community that I live in and that I serve. And I think that that's the ultimate higher purpose is like, this is my place that I live in. I have 2 kids that live here, and we come down to eat, we go to attractions, we go to the Air Zoo, we go to Gilmore Car Museum. And, my motivation is to make this the best place that it can possibly be, whether it's through sports events or it's through meetings, or it's volunteering. I know we do a fair amount of that at Discover Kalamazoo too. So I'm just highly motivated to make the community better in whatever way we can. So I know it sounds kind of cliche, but
no, it's awesome.
It's just true. Yeah.
It's kind of like you saw a little bit of the like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like how the city actually works and whatnot. Do you think you still have that same passion if you didn't meet those people?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, maybe not. I think it just builds the more people you meet. I'm big on like personal connections and relationships. And I think the more people you meet, the better you understand like the DNA of the community. And I think it just kind of snowballs with the more people you meet. And like the Promise is one of those, right? And I know Dante on the team too. And I met you guys a couple of years ago through the PAL program and the Spelling Bees partnerships that we had. And I think the more people you continue to meet and you snowball like those relationships, it makes you want to work for everybody else that because we're all doing the same thing to promote Kalamazoo and make it a better place, maybe just different things that we do to do that, So I think it definitely, the more people you meet, the more it motivates you for sure.
Yeah. Because it's almost like you're literally promoting Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
we're kind of like promoting something that we have, or like a resource,
sure.
Or, something that's here. I feel like that's what a lot of organizations do. It's like, here's something amazing in Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
and that makes more sense for the partnership of here's something that we're doing. You guys promote what's going on in Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
there's a natural partnership there.
100%.
So, if you could do anything to transform Kalamazoo, what would it be?
This is an easy question right now because it is a high priority in my day-to-day right now, and that is building a new indoor youth and amateur sports facility. So, we could do a whole podcast on this alone, but just for context purposes, about 80% of the sports event business that we've done in Kalamazoo over the years has been in 5 sports. So it's ice hockey, it's skating, it's tennis, wrestling, and I believe soccer might be the 5th one. That's been about 80% of our business. And when I say business, it's hotel rooms, people that come here for tournaments or events for sports, those 5 sports. And it's really unique that we do so well in those sports because we overperform compared to the average in the Midwest with those 5 sports. And it's because we have great facilities and we have great partners. So we never want to take those for granted. But one of the things that we realized after doing a big study this past year was that, like, basketball and volleyball, for example, those are 2 of the highest participation levels, not only in Kalamazoo, but in the Midwest and nationally. That, like, there's such a high percentage of people that play those sports, and we're not capturing any of that here in Kalamazoo. And so for anyone that knows somebody who plays youth basketball or youth volleyball, if you have a kid or a nephew or a niece or a family member or a friend, you probably know that if they're playing in a tournament or something, they're not doing it here in most cases. They're going to Fort Wayne, Indiana, or Chicago or Grand Rapids in some cases. And, like, that's super problematic for local youth that want to play basketball, because when we talk to basketball and volleyball organizers here locally, first of all, there's such a high demand for court space right now that kids can't even get on the court if they want to. And when they do, they're limited to, like, just ridiculously small windows that are hard. So we know from talking to youth basketball and volleyball coaches that if we had a facility with more courts, we could spread that demand a little bit. There's more accessibility. You might get higher participation levels. There's kids that want to play basketball and volleyball that they can't because these programs have nowhere to grow, and they have nowhere to play and practice. So I think, like, number one, a facility like that gives local kids a greater opportunity, and we can get more kids to play. Besides the health benefits that it provides too, but also instead of, having kids have to fundraise to go play tournaments elsewhere, we could host that here in Kalamazoo, right? And so it makes it more affordable, more accessible, programs flourish, more kids participate, we have a healthier community, like, it all snowballs. And we don't have those facilities in, like, a critical mass size here. So, like, the courts that we do have are at schools like Western and at, local high schools, but they're student first priority. And the second priority is anyone else that can come, right? And then you have the courthouse, which is a nice facility, but it's only 6 basketball courts, and everyone in the world is trying to play there, right? There's just not enough room for everybody.
And it's kind of far.
Yeah, it's a little bit far. And so we think there's enough for them to thrive, but also, like, something here that everybody has access to. And there's just a win-win all around for everybody. So that's our number one priority right now, is to try to figure out, like, A, where is the site, and B, how do we fund it and get an operating model? And I think we're taking all the necessary steps. It just takes some homework and some stakeholder groups we've had, and we're working our way through those steps right now. So that's 100%. If I could snap my fingers and make it happen tomorrow, I would. Like, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
No, I know, even just, like, the outdoor courts that are available, like, during COVID, we were trying to find courts like, that didn't have the rims taken down or just weren't letting people there. And then we had some at, like, our apartments that we were staying at. And then everybody found out, and then they came and shut it down.
And there's a lot of times it's like 1 or 2 courts, right? There's not a lot, like, a critical mass is hard to find around here.
Yeah. I mean, we were consistently going to, like, Portage so that we could play basketball outside. And this was even, like, towards the end of COVID. When it was like they were starting to put stuff back up, but not really, and they're just waiting. But I like that you guys are looking at, there isn't a space for that for youth to use. And then, like you said, it kind of snowballs. You get this whole perspective. We talk about education. We talk about nutrition. We talk about, like, all these different things. This holistic approach. And if we're missing a fitness aspect, then, who is it that's going to come in and help with that? You're doing that work. So kudos to you.
Thanks. It's going to become a reality. It's just a matter of time here.
So. Nice. So what are some of your favorite things about Kalamazoo? I know you talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah. I have a different perspective now with two kids. I have two boys at home. They're 7 and 9. And I think one thing, I lived here for 20 years now, and for 10 of those, I didn't have kids. And so it's one of those things where you think you know everything that there is to do here. And then you have kids and you realize this is really a family friendly place. And I never really had that context until I had two kids of my own. So there's all kinds of stuff for us to do. Like we've gone to Revel and Roll and Airway Lanes, and you go to Air Zoo and Gilmore Car Museum. We have some of the best attractions for a city our size, and they're kid-friendly attractions. So, the museum downtown is free. So when our kids were young, we used to bring them there for something to do, and it was free basically. And so we've done stuff like that. And we've taken the kids all over the place. So there's just tons to do for people with families with young kids, but then there's stuff for, seniors too. There's just such a wide variety of things for a city our size. So
nice. I know one thing, my wife always says this, because she's from Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And she says, like, say there's an event going on. I'm like, oh, we should go to this. And then she's like, okay. But then we get there and there might be a cost.
Yeah.
And she's like, this isn't free.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, it's one of those things where like not everything, but most of the things that she would go to in the city, it was just, you could just go.
Yeah.
And I think with Kalamazoo growing and everything, I think that will happen eventually.
Yeah.
Not to say that there isn't free stuff, because you just said there are free things to do, but it's funny like hearing different people's perspective about like if you have kids or not. Oh, there's nothing to do in Kalamazoo. You have kids. Oh, there's a bunch of things for our family to go to. And I get that of, you're in a different place in life, and then you start to notice, oh, this is why people stay here. This is why people live here, and this is why people come back.
Yeah. Well, and I think like us having colleges and universities here also differentiates us a little bit, because all the things that we can do with a university in our backyard too is super cool. And, like my wife's from the east side of the state, and they're all spread out throughout Metro Detroit, but they are always super jealous that like we get to go to Western Michigan games or Kalamazoo College games or things of that nature that the university does all the time, that they kind of miss out, in suburbia or just other places that don't have those colleges and universities. Right. So, yeah.
Nice. Yep. All right. If the Kalamazoo Promise was available to you, how would it have changed things for you?
That's a great question. That's a hard one. I would say, I don't know because, so I went to Granville Public Schools. I grew up in Grand Rapids and went to Granville Public Schools. And I think having like the ability to have the promise, when I sent out my college applications and I had my GPA where it was or whatever, I kind of limited myself on where I would have gone to school. And I think having the promise and like knowing that kind of the opportunities are unlimited a little bit, I think it would have pushed me harder to, apply for other places to go to school. I love being a Bronco, and I love that I went to Western Michigan, but I maybe had a ceiling for what I thought I could do. And I think the cool thing about the promise is it kind of unlocks that for anybody. At least that's my perception of it, is that knowing that you have that opportunity regardless, it kind of like there is no ceiling, I guess. So I think that might have been a way that it could have changed my trajectory had I been able to take advantage of it like that. So
maybe lift the burden of like expenses and where you might see yourself going to, or what debt you are planning to incur.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like my wife and I both had college debt. And so knowing that coming out of school, we were going to spend the first 10 years of our lives paying off debt, that probably would have changed how that 10-year plan out of college would have been after that too. What we could have done. So I hadn't really thought about it until you asked that question. It's a really thought provoking one. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, do I have questions for you? I don't know. I guess something that I always like to ask people is like, you grew up here in Kalamazoo, right? So how is your opinion or your perception changed as a youth in Kalamazoo to like an adult in Kalamazoo? like, how do you see the city? Do you see the city any differently than you did when you were young? And what is that? Yeah,
I do. And definitely, like, since I've been working here and meeting people and actually learning the stuff that's happening,
yeah,
I think before it was just kind of like I was just here. Like, I didn't come downtown much at all. And there's a lot going on here. And then also just like from a parent perspective, like, oh, this is what we can go do. This is fun for the whole family. And plus, like, I'm actually looking for the stuff. I'm not just like, I hear about something and then maybe go to it. It's actually, I'm actively looking, maybe going to Discover Kalamazoo's website, trying to find out what's going on in Kalamazoo. But I don't know, before I was kind of just like, not sheltered, but I wasn't looking for stuff to do. I was very, introverted. I don't know why I couldn't think of the word. I was very introverted, so I didn't go out much. So that's the change. And then I'm in a position where I'm kind of forced to be extroverted. So that makes a difference.
Sure.
How can someone get involved in the work that you're doing?
There's so many ways. One of the ways is we're always looking for volunteers. So, and when we say the volunteers, we work with over 60 sports organizers in Kalamazoo that they are always in need of volunteers. So it could be the USTA Boys Nationals tennis tournament. It could be the Kalamazoo Marathon. It could be we work with the gravel road bike race organizer who always needs volunteers for the route. We have the Greater Kalamazoo Skating Association that they just need people posted at different spots at Wings Event Center when they host their annual event. And then we also have on the meeting side, if you just want to be an ambassador for the city, we have a pool of volunteers that when there's a meeting going on at the Radisson, for example, we sometimes have information tables and we have people stationed there for meal recommendations or things to do when there's downtime. So we're always looking for those people all the time. We can never get enough of them because everyone's availability is different. So I think that's one super easy way to get involved. And then another way to get involved is, just about everybody that might be listening or watching this podcast is probably a member of some association or organization in the community, whether it's local or it's statewide or national. And so our ask to people is always, if you've gone somewhere else for that meeting or that event, how do we work together to have that event in Kalamazoo so that you don't have to leave Kalamazoo? And how do we use that to show off our city? Because I think, we have a lot of pride, and everyone on our team has so much pride in what we do, and we have a lot of pride in the city. So if you're a part of an organization or an association of some type, just think of what that is and where you go to do that. How do we do it here? And we actually just had that exact scenario happen with the YMCA, is that they reached out to us asking for like our partners in Lansing because they have a leadership conference that they're doing, and we kind of were like, well, can we host that here? And then we started a dialogue with them, and they ended up having it here in Kalamazoo. And so like, we're always looking for opportunities like that to host things right here in Kalamazoo. And then you get to show off your community to all your peers too. Yeah. So I think those are two of the easiest ways to get involved. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And also thank you for sharing your story, sharing about your organization. People need to hear it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate it, John.
Hey, anytime.
Yeah, thanks.
I'd have to have you back.
I appreciate it.